You did more than a year. Yeah, normal tour was 13 months and they extended it. I enlisted when I was 17. I was the oldest of 7 kids. I wanted out.
Now me and my buddy, we played around. We were 20. We took our graphs out and everything. We decided there we joined the Air Force.
Good choice. I didn't know about all the difference.
It's got to be good.
So, but the Air Force, they got themselves in hot water too, but still. Most of the time they were on their crew.
Yeah. my brother-in-law was equipment guy. But my brother-in-law, I was in the Air Force, and he was in the Air Force. We didn't even know each other. I think it had some effect. He was an ATE, told him when called for easy slippers for the aircraft, light card and something. He had told that now. And I could just imagine, I never was, so I know what it's like on most air, there's a little tractor, piece of equipment out there going down the flight. And I think he still sees roads that he still sees like he's nervous about
In the 80s, but they were aircraft carriers that worked on flight lines.
Thank you. Kick it off.
Good morning, everyone. Glad you could attend this morning. Glad to have everybody here. This one is on general RV maintenance, and we got a few handouts. Probably not going to go through this like line by line, but we'll try to cover some items that are important to maintain in your RV. My name is Chris McCready. This is Pete Hunt.
Good morning.
Pete works in the service department, and we both camp. Both have had and do own a camper, so we got some ideas of what we run into to keep up with our unit and keep it working properly. Some of the topics we'll spend a few minutes on, some will be a little bit more because some we've already covered, and we've got some that's upcoming that's very important as well. So glad to have everybody with us. And Pete, I don't know what you want to start covering with this morning, so we can start with stuff we have covered before is a roof inspection.
All right, so like I said, we're going to start with roof inspection this morning. We did just do a seminar on this about 3 weeks ago. Hello? There you go. There we go. All right, we did do a seminar on this about 3 weeks ago. Some of you, I know, were here. I recognize the faces. If not, you can always rewatch that seminar. But we are going to touch on and cover it again today a little bit. I'll start with the roof inspection. So the roofs on your RVs, most of them are typically a rubber roof. There are different types, but the rubber roof is typically your most common. And a lot of units will have a sticker on it that looks like this that will remind you and tell you that that needs to be inspected every 90 days. Now, most people don't realize that. They don't realize that that's something that has to be done every 3 months. But it does just need to be inspected. And first and foremost is safety. Getting up on your RV roof can be dangerous, so you want to be careful. You want to be safe. But unfortunately, you do have to get up on that roof to do the inspection for it. So once you're up there, you're going to look at your rubber roof that you're going to have up there and just look for any damage that may be done to that. These roof membranes, it's a thin rubber membrane, and they last a long time, the roof membrane itself. So you want to inspect it just for any damage, but what you're really looking for is in any of the sealant that is used up there, which is what's called a lap sealant, that seals up all of the seams. It's going to seal up around any items you have up there, such as your skylights, your vents, like I said, the seams around the four corners, and anything else that your unit may have up there. TV antennas, there's a lot of different things. And that sealant, through time, as exposed to UV expansion and contraction of the weather, and the unit that's going down the road and things moving around as it does, can develop small cracks or gaps in them. And that's where that water intrusion can come in. So you want to be up there inspecting and looking at that and seeing if you have any gaps, and if you do, get them addressed and get them touched up. with a lap sealant product, which is like what you see right here. This particular one is made by Dycor Products, which is probably one of the most popular. But what you would use on your roof, on the flat part of your roof, would be a self-leveling lap seal. And that's what's used from the manufacturer up there around all those products. And like I said, you're looking for any gaps or cracks or anything, you know, from the manufacturer. A lot of times they use a minimal amount that they need to seal up those areas that we discussed. And, you know, contraction and you know, this UV damage and things like that can expose small areas that maybe need touched up or even recovered. So every 90 days, you want to be on the roof and looking at the condition of the roof, looking for any damage that may happen. Unfortunately, you know, you may not have realized it, but you may have caught a tree limb at a campsite or something like that. And that can do damage to that thin rubber membrane. So you want to be up there looking for anything like that. Another product that I recommend you just have with you is, this is called Extreme Tape, but it is a kind of a semi-permanent repair that can be done for if you did get any damage to that roof. So you did catch a tree limb or something fell on it at a campsite or something like that and punctured a small hole, or even got a tear in it from a tree limb or something like that. That's a product that you can apply over that to seal it up. And like I said, I would call it semi-permanent. You would still want to maintain that. That stuff does last a long time, but something that you may still want to have addressed a little later down the road and have looked at about maybe a permanent repair. Anything you want to add to the roof?
The only thing that I would add to the roof is if you're up there and you see it needs to be cleaned, it's starting to get a little bit of mold on it, something like that. I know that some of the manufacturers, they have their own product that you can use as well. I know back here in the back, when someone brings it into us, there's a two-part system we use. We clean the roof with it, let it dry, and then put a UV protectant on it as well. We have found that the UV protectant, when it's on there, not only does it help preserve the roof, but it helps with the black streaks that you have from when it sits out and doesn't get washed very often and so forth.
Yes, sir. We have a question.
The 90 days that you recommend you inspect it, is that directly related to how much it's out in the weather? Because it's not out in the weather much, the sun's not UV, it's not affecting your sealants, correct? It actually sits in the barn when the sun doesn't hit it.
Right. That, and your point is correct. The UV rays, still what will your barn's heated? Okay, then that's a big plus too. Where I keep mine, it's not heated, so it still gets exposed to the weather expansion, contraction. I just look at mine before I put it up, and I look at mine when I get it out in that situation. In some cases, I do have to touch mine up, but you're preserving it much better than sitting out in the elements.
Okay, so next yes, another question.
I got my ladder's on the side of the toy hauler. When I crawl it, I used to crawl up there and clean off the slides before it takes off sometimes. And I've been putting my knee up there at the top rug and then grab that top one and pull my cell phone up on the top. I noticed them spots are getting a little softer there. It's right on the curve. Is that gonna have, if I keep doing that like this, that's gonna have some long-term effects on where the soft spots are?
Yes, so I'm suspecting the soft spots like where the ladder goes over on the top, right? Yes. Probably you need to make sure that is sealed well around where that ladder is. But what they use is the 4 small screws that go in there. It's probably over time, you might have to look at that and address it where you put new screws in a different location to get it secure if it's getting soft.
But like I said, I do put my knees right on that curve, and that the spots are just it's, seems like they're giving away. Of course, somebody as big as I am, put that much.
I can agree with that when I get on mine. So yeah, I have to make sure that I'm finding where all the trusses are when I'm going across it on the hands and knees.
Yeah, I mean, you may feel a little flex up there on that roof.
Yeah.
That's different than maybe a soft spot.
Yeah.
So, keep an eye on that, because if you are between trusses, you may feel that can flex a little.
Well, it's right.
But if it's soft, that's something different.
It's right there where the ladder goes up that one top section on the roof. I just grab that and put my knee up there, pull myself on up. But
Yeah.
that's a lot of force on it.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
So I guess, any other questions? So exterior, seal, and trim inspection. My trailer being what I call a stick and tin, which is wood frame, metal siding, gets a lot of movement, a lot of flex when you're going down the road, and as well as your fiberglass sided trailers do as well. But I always make sure that while we're camping, I just give it a general walk around. I check all the seals around my windows, any extrusions on the side, where the handle is, where you go in and out of the door because you're pulling on it and so forth. Just make sure those seals you can't get your fingernail in between the steel trim and the metal siding or the fiberglass, either one. Just make sure that stays sealed up. Problem areas with the fifth wheel that's behind you, of course, is the front overhang gets a lot of flex when it goes down the road. So these corner trims you see on the front, they always seem to open up because of the flex, and you just need to make sure that maintains to keep the water out of it as well. Doing a general walk around and check anything where the metal trim meets the siding and so forth, and just keep it sealed. Keeping the water out is the lifeline of maintaining the RV.
Yeah, and everything that is attached or goes through, the sides of that camper is sealed. So, every hatch, like you said, door handle screw, marker lights, everything that is on that goes through that wall is going to be sealed. And generally it's sealed with like a silicone product. Some of your larger hatches and doors have some putty tape that are behind them and then sealed with silicone. But you want to use a good quality silicone product to seal that up. Something that's designed, what we use here is a product like Chris has there.
It's Sika Seal, and we also use the GE 100% silicone. We seem to find that this has a better longevity than just a normal silicone like a household style. This product here seems to last longer than anything that we found that we use, as well as the 100% GE silicone as well.
So, this is something, what Chris said was great is, while you're at the campsite, this is something you can do. Just take a walk around and inspect that. Unlike things that, in a household environment, these things go down the road and they're shaking. They're, rough times go down and a lot of stress is put on a lot of these joints and these seals and seams. So, they can separate away, just pull away. It may still look like it's sealed properly, but it's actually been pulled away and then just kind of rested back. So do a good inspection on it, look at it. Because unfortunately, a lot of times, once you discover you've had a water intrusion of some sort, it's too late and some damage has been done. So the higher frequency that you can just take a walk around and look at these things, the better off you'll be. And, once again, it's a great one of those, something like that's a great product just to keep with you. So if you're at the campsite and you're taking a walk around, you see a little spot that needs touched up, you can just touch it up right there. It'll be good. So another part of the seams and, the seams is the seals. So you have seals all around your unit. Slide outs are one of the most important ones, but you also have seals that go around every hatch, your door itself. They all usually have a rubber gasket of some type of seal that's around them. You want to inspect those as well. Unfortunately, things don't last forever. They do deteriorate, they age, and they can begin to become brittle. When it comes to your slide out seals, you usually have a couple sets that help safeguard you. You a lot of times have an exterior set. That's what you see around the slide out itself, and then you'll have an interior set as well. But you want to inspect those and look to make sure that they are not cracked. There is products that you apply to them on a regular basis that helps condition them, because they are rubber seal, that can help condition them and keep them very pliable and definitely extend the life of them. It's just a simple product like what you see right here. It's called Seal Saver. If any of you guys have ever seen like the tire foam you put on your car, on your tires and stuff, it comes out in a white foam. That's the way this works. And you're just going to spray that on those seals, and those come out in a white foam, and then just leave it. Just let it sit. And it will eventually just absorb into the rubber there and run off. And it also lubricates them for you. So when those slides go in and out, if you've ever seen those seals kind of stick and not want to fold the right way, or even kind of sometimes make a squeaky noise and stuff like that, this lubricates those and makes them slide much easier, which can prolong the life of them as well on that slide out when it goes in and out. Another thing to consider is when you are setting up or taking down is those slide seals over time, and especially as they sit with those slides in for a long period of time, they can actually create a little bit of memory, especially as they age a little bit and they do get a little stiffer. So maybe when that slide comes out, this full seal doesn't flip out with it, because it's a wiper seal and it flips in and out. And if that seal doesn't flip out, it may not be sealed properly for you at the campsite. So that's just another one of those inspections you can do as you're walking around to make sure that when your slides came out, all the seals folded out with them as well properly. Because like I said, with time and age, they can't hold the memory to them.
I got a question.
Yes.
Is it better in the winter to have the sides in, or out
Okay, the question was, is it better to have slides in or out, during
during the winter?
the winter and things like that? Are you referring to when you're camping or just when you're storing?
No, when it's
Being stored?
being
Yeah.
stored.
Yeah, just put them in. Put them in, because you're going to get an extra level of protection there with what's called the bulb seal around the outside. That's also going to go up against that flange there, that fascia. So putting them in, it's not, that way the roof of the slide is not exposed, and it's an extra level of protection for you there, because you have an extra bulb seal and sealing it as well when you put it in. Yes, sir.
Yeah, do you seal, or what would be better? The little rubber that goes around the edges, like on the sides here, in the seam, just a little rubber. Is it better to try to put the piece back, or just fill the gap full of silicone?
So I'm guessing his question was the rubber. So I'm assuming you're meaning that it has a butyl tape in behind most of these. Is that what you're referring to?
I think he's talking about the insert.
I'm just talking like on mine, like what this has around the
Yeah, so the insert.
right.
Yeah, we replace those all the time. And then we usually, when the technicians replace that, they will take and just ever so often just put a dab of silicone as they're running the new, what they call that is a screw cover. And as they're running the new one along, they try to bunch it up as much as they can and not stretch it, because that's what happens is it shrinks over time. And that helps hold it up there, and they'll run it around there, and then they put a screw to secure it on one end and the other, but it's best to keep it covered, yes.
So you say put the rubber back in it instead of just filling the groove full of silicone.
Yes, it's best just to have the screw cover
Okay.
with it.
Yeah, and we sell that here. It comes in long rolls, and it's
Okay.
relatively
Yeah,
inexpensive. It's not too hard to replace. So yeah, it's a good idea just to replace that. Just insert it there. All right, so the next topic we're going to
Hold on a second.
Oh, we have one more question.
Seal saver, do you have to worry about it getting on your paint if you spray it on?
The
Heat damage to paint?
the seal protectant? No, will not damage paint. I mean, if you do get a lot of overspray all over it, you can just wipe it off, but it's not going to do any damage to it. No, not at all. Okay, so our next one's going to be, we got a seminar coming up in regards to repack wheel bearings, inspect axle, and adjust brakes. So that is one we got coming up. But as you know, today we're talking about overall maintenance and inspection. So we're going to talk about everything that you need to be, so you're aware of you know, the things you need to be looking for in owning a mobile home, camper. So we're going to touch on this briefly here and talk about some of the things that you should be either having done or inspecting on your own. So repack wheel bearings. As you see, the interval listed here is every year or 12,000 miles. This is something that's easily forgotten by a lot of people because you don't see it. A lot of, you know, out of sight, out of mind, and you don't think about it. But it is very important to make sure that those bearings are very healthy because you don't naturally want to have a failure out on the road somewhere. So, you know, when we repack the bearings or when they're repacked, not only are you repacking the bearings, but you're replacing the seals for those bearings. You know, it's a lot of people think, well, I've got the grease zerk on them to where I can just apply some grease every so often and I'm good. But if you have a seal that is failing on you, you know, you can be blowing all that grease right into that hub, which not only is not doing any good for you, but can also affect the brakes and the performance of your brakes, which can become a hazard to you. So it's a great idea every year, or you know, most people don't hit that 12,000 miles unless you're a real road warrior or die hard. Have those bearings repacked. It can save you a lot of headache and malfunction down the road by making sure you've got healthy bearings in there that are packed properly for you. Also, you know, when you're doing that, you have the hubs off of the unit. That's when you want to inspect the brakes. You know, brakes do need adjustment on these. Most of these units, most of your trailers use a drum brake mechanism, and they do require adjustment to them, especially on the newer unit. Newer unit that you've gotten and started using it for that first year, it's definitely probably going to need an adjustment to those drums and those brakes after they kind of had a break-in period on them. So, you know, inspecting those brakes is something that's done during that repack because you're right in there on them. But making sure that they're healthy, the pads are good, and everything's adjusted properly on those. And, you know, one of the last things there is inspecting your axles. So take a look at your axles. You know, you want to look for any damage to them. Take a look at the springs. Just take a look at those things and make sure everything looks good and are roadworthy. And you know, naturally, we don't want to have any accidents out there or anything like that. So, what else, Chris?
So, you know, just like the camper that I own, usually, not every time I go out, but every 2 times I'll go out. Mine's a single axle, so it weighs 4,300 pounds load. That's a lot of weight on the axle because being in the position that been here for 21 years, seen several come in with the hangers broke where the spring goes. So, and people's never got it inspected. So I usually, where the spring attaches to the hanger, I just look at the welds around it, make sure nothing's been stressed, nothing's cracked. For me, being a single axle, if something happens, it's pretty devastating. Yeah. So, and I've seen it before, and we've got 2 of them back there right now with an axle issue. One, they've never repacked the wheel bearings on it since they've owned it. The other one is they did strike something on the road and it ended up breaking a hanger. But I just check those hangers, make sure the welds are good, kind of look at everything underneath, like my brackets for my tanks, make sure everything's tight, make sure there's nothing rusted and exposed. And if it is, I take a brush and brush it and just hit it with some black paint. That keeps the corrosion and rust from getting worse. And just, it's part of making sure you just don't have a failure going down the road. So.
All right, any questions? Yes, sir.
Those brake drums, they don't have self-adjusters on them like the automobiles did.
There is to a certain extent. See, that's an electric operated mechanism in there. So the voltage is applied, a magnet grabs the outside of the drum, which expands the brake pads or shoes. Over time, I mean, it's just like your old cars, as you'll be familiar with. When you back up and hit your brakes several times, it's supposed to help them. Well, when you're backing in your sight and you hit your brakes, it's supposed to, but what we found is it's not like driving your car every day. So you're not applying this when you're backing up like you are driving your car every day. So it doesn't maintain the proper operating of the pad. So you can manually adjust those, which we do a lot here.
Well, I was just curious because I know well, probably don't get a lot of even drum brakes on those anymore.
Right.
I know for years they had self-adjusters on
And these are, but the problem is, like you said, about the only time you're backing it in is where you park it and where you park it. It's not like driving a car where you're backing in and out of spots every day and so forth. So.
And, we just had a unit in here last week that, case in point, this guy hadn't used his unit in 2 years. So, you're not going to think about, I need to repack, I haven't put any miles on it. But what had happened was 3 of his 4, it was a dual axle trailer, 3 of his 4 brakes, those adjusters had rusted and seized shut. So he only had 1 hub that was actually applying any braking force for him because it had sat so long that those adjusters had rusted and seized shut. So, it's a good idea, regardless of use, to have that inspected and looked at. So our next topic we're going to talk about real quick is going to be inspect and lube slide seals and mechanisms. We touched on that when we talked about our seals a while ago. The only thing we didn't touch on, we talked about seals and lubricating those seals and maintaining the condition of them. But we didn't talk about the slide mechanism itself. So there's several different types of slide mechanisms. And it's kind of important to know which type you have for kind of knowing what type of maintenance you need to do to it. Some you naturally need to lube, and it's very important that they are lubricated. Some you do not. And you can actually, it's actually harmful to it if you lubricate it. So understanding that is very important, and I don't want to go too in depth on that, but there's cable slides, there's gear driven slides, and then there's a system called the Schwinn-Tech, which is what y'all see on each one of these 2 slides right behind you. That's kind of a precision type slide system with very tight tolerances. And you would see that gear track on that and think, oh, I see a metal gear track, that's something that needs lubricating. But on that particular system, what you see right there, those do not need lubricating, and you don't want to lubricate those. But on your underhung gear driven type slide systems, you do want to lubricate those track systems on those types. So, along with maintaining the seals on the slides and making sure that those are sealed up properly, also just doing a little extra maintenance there and inspection can really help, prolong the life of those slide room mechanisms and having any issues with them.
So, any questions on that?
WD-40?
You can use WD-40. There is a more of a dry lube that you should use underneath there because you don't want to get grit and dirt in that gear stuff. So
right. You don't want to track the dirt into it. So
That's silicone? That's silicone?
it is silicone based. Yes.
Do you have any? I do have a cable driven system. I ain't all that happy with it.
And there's very little adjustment to it.
I know the cables will sag sometimes, and then other times they're tight. I wonder if one of them things is going to jump off the roller or something where you're.
Well, I know that there is very little adjustment. You have to take the panel off where the motor and so forth sits because it's actually chain driven in behind that. There is some adjustments where the cables go to the chain part of it. And there's not a lot of adjustments because I usually cut them how they're used to cutting them and then put it together. But the only thing that I do for the cables herself is, I know there's several people that use candle wax, but there's another product as well that put on the cable to deter the water from going in there.
I use beeswax.
Yeah, beeswax. So the cable driven, that way the water won't wick inside past the flap seal.
They use paraffin as well.
So the next thing we'll get to is LP leak test and system check. I wanted to put this on the list because right after I bought my trailer, about a year afterwards, I had an incident where we're camping and our LP detector kept going off. We couldn't figure out why it was going off. I wanted to get aggravated and just cut it. And my water heater sits underneath our dinette. And luckily, underneath the dinette on the other side is where my LP detector is. I looked at it, couldn't find it. I finally just turned the gas off, and I told her, I said, we'll continue to camp, we'll have the gas going, and when we need to take a shower or something, we'll turn the water heater on. I know it's here somewhere, can't find it. We ended up staying just one day instead of two, come back. I couldn't find it. We put it in the shop, and we performed what they call an LP drop test. There is, I think it's called a U-tube is what most of them use, and we have also a gauge that we will perform an LP drop test to see if it has any leaks. It's supposed to hold what they call 8 inches of water column for 3 minutes. And if it does that, then your system's great. There's no leaks anywhere. But if it doesn't, you have a leak somewhere. And then you have to start removing your LP operated appliances from the system to figure out where it's leaking. So after we went from the stove, from the furnace to the hot water heater, we figured out the hot water heater was the leak that was occurring. So I know that several of you have had your water heater door open on the outside. It has a line that comes inside out to the regulator, and that's where it makes a connection. And there's a rubber seal there that was void, and then also the line going to that regulator was loose, and it was letting the propane come inside the trailer and was a leak. Found it, fixed it, hooked everything else up, checked it, it was all good. But we couldn't smell it. That was the problem. Even though you have the ethyl mercaptan, which is what's in LP, to create the smell, we still couldn't smell it. But it was enough that the LP detector picked it up. So when we get these in brand new, we do LP drop tests because these are put together pretty quick. So, and we find whatever it is and make the repairs and so forth. And we also do it again before it's sold. Because the LP system, no leaks, it's important because it can be a silent killer. So we wanted to add this for the ones that have not had it done and recommend, it probably didn't hurt once a year to have an LP drop test performed and check for leaks, because you have all your LP lines that run underneath the trailer that when I'm under mine, it only has 3 places where it's connected to the trailer, but I only have 2 hangers. So I added 2 more hangers just because there was a lot of movement in the line. But still, we think it's important to check that LP system to make sure there's no leaks. A visual inspection that you can do every time you remove your LP tanks to have them filled is just check the lines around and see if there's anything wet, see if there's anything cracked. If it is, it can easily be replaced. But other than that, doing a system check to do what we call a drop test is probably pretty important to do every year. Because if you're going to schedule it to do your bearing repack, it doesn't take that long to get one done. And we just feel like that's pretty important. Because leaks can come up and can happen. Any questions?
Okay, so next we have tire inspection. This is another one that's kind of sometimes forgotten. Or maybe it's something that you aren't really aware of what you're looking for or what to inspect. So, some people may just look at their tires, see the tread depth on them, and say, yeah, my tires look good, or my tires only have 5,000 miles on them. We haven't used this unit that much, these tires look good. And that's part of the inspection, naturally, is looking at the tread wear and different things like that. But usually what comes into play is tires get dated. And And, the average trailer tire lifespan is about 3 to 5 years, is what it is. Tires under trailers, we ask a lot of them. They take a lot of abuse. There's a lot of twisting and turning involved in them. They naturally haul a solid load with them all the time, whatever the weight of your trailer is. And then, these trailers, unfortunately, they don't have the super soft, squishy suspension that our vehicles have. So they take that road abuse a lot more than what your average vehicle does. And so, not only are you looking at the wear of the tread and things like that, but you want to be looking for, any kind of bulging, side wear bulging or anything like sidewall bulging or anything like that, where it could be a belt issue or separation issue inside of the tire. That could be a problem as well. And that could be from damage going down the road. And, like I said, the most important thing is the date. That's what we see the most, is these tires, they pass that expiration date per se. And that's when things can begin to happen with them, like I said, about the separation of those steel belts inside of them, or anything like that, which is usually one of the main causes of a blowout, is the tires actually separate and they blow out. So, there's a date code on every tire made after the year 2000. You have a date code on that tire. It's a 4-digit number. And a lot of times it'll be preceded by DOT, and then a series of letters and numbers, and then you'll have a set of 4 numbers together. So most times it's towards the end. It usually has a few little dots or before and after to kind of signify that's what that is. And it's a 4-digit code. The first 2 numbers in that are the week of the year that the tire was made. It could be anywhere from 01 to 52. And that's the week of the year, or of the year that tire was made. The last 2 numbers are going to be the year. And those are the 2 most important, those last 2 numbers. That's what year that tire was made. So, like I said, 3 to 5 years is the average lifespan on a trailer tire before deterioration of things can happen. And a lot of people say, well, I don't drive it that much, I don't use it that much, we only use it 4 or 5 times a year, things like that. Well, there's factors that play into that, UV damage, things like that, a lot stored inside. But actually, when it comes to the rubber compounds of a tire, driving it is actually good for it, where sitting is not. Those rubber compounds get redistributed and keep that tire fresh every time it gets used and driven. So sitting can actually be a little worse than driving on a tire. So that's once again where that date code comes into range and understanding the age of your tires. So, you want to add on to that?
No, not really. You covered it pretty good. We're going to have, when he does the brakes and axles and so forth, Ben Hoffman, he worked for Raven Tire for a long time, and so he understands, and sees the in and out of tire failures and so forth. And it's something that he's going to cover in the upcoming seminar. I'd be more than happy for everybody to attend that. So any questions on that? So the next thing we'll get to is AC maintenance for roof air conditioners. And one of the roof air conditioners have a filter that's on the inside of the unit. I know that it seems like I have to clean mine every time we get done camping. Mine's white. So I went ahead and invested in an extra filter just to keep in there, just to keep clean. So yes, I'll ask my wife if she would do this, and she does. She'll take that one down, clean it, and then let it hang and let it dry, and then put the new one in there. So when we're ready to go camping the next time, we're ready to go. And then this one is dry and ready to be swapped out. But we've learned that to keep ours performing properly, because we do a lot of dry camping, we used to go to a lot of dirt track races, so the dirt is definitely prevalent. That if we do this every time, it breathes properly, it seems to cool better, the performance of it's really good. But I also learned after about my 3rd time doing the dirt track race, my air conditioner kind of quit working, wasn't working very well. And one of the technicians says, have you cleaned the outside? I said, no, I haven't cleaned the outside. He said, well, that's important. It's just like the maintenance you do at home. They have to come in, clean the coils, and get all the debris and everything out of it for it to perform properly. So we took it off. Most of them have 4 to 6 screws to remove the white cover. And you can see down in there, it was just clogged up. It couldn't breathe. So they make, I've manually washed mine out, but they make a coil cleaner. I've seen our guy come in and service our furnace, and he carries this and does all the coils on the inside, the A coil and all, everything. And he also uses it on the outside. This stuff foams, it gets in between all the coils, and it does a very good job of cleaning it. It's probably recommended you check that once a year, because cottonwood trees in the spring, it'll get clogged up with those. And you can also see if there's anything that, if the coil, you can get that straightened out at the same time. They make a coil comb that you can use to straighten up the coils. But the good thing is now, 90% of these air conditioner covers doesn't have the open back like they used to. That's when you had a big problem with the coils being folded over. But all your manufacturers now, they've got to where they close them up with smaller holes and so forth. And the older ones, we had birds building nests and that kind of stuff. But these new style that they're using now, you can see the GE's all closed up. The Colemans are closed up. And the same way with Dominic, theirs is all closed up as well. But you just need to get up there, take that off, and clean it out, and it really helps with the performance of your air conditioner.
And once again, it's great to have this list, keep this list, and think about when to do these things. You're on a roof doing a roof inspection, that's the perfect time to do that. So you're already up there, pop that cover off, take a look, clean out any debris or anything that's in there, and it's a great time to inspect that. Yes, sir.
That cover that you said comes off with 4 to 6 screws, that wouldn't be a sealable, because that's all.
Right, yeah. No seals you have to worry about or anything there, yeah. There's some screws and a plastic cover comes off, yeah. Anything else? Okay, so next we have 12-volt battery maintenance. So this is something we added because we get a lot of questions about this, or, unfortunately, a lot of frustration when people are having issues with some of the electronics in their camper. So the 12-volt battery is really the heart of the the electrical system of your camper. So naturally, the 12-volt battery is what provides DC power to a lot of the components in the camper. And then you also have AC power, 120 volt, that provides power to other things in the camper. But most everything requires 12-volt DC power, even the items that use 120 volt, your air conditioner, that's a perfect one. The air conditioners, your water heaters that have the electric elements, those things still require 12-volt DC to operate the circuit boards, the control boards that operate those 120-volt appliances. So without 12 volts, you really don't have much of anything operating, even if you have good 120-volt shore power plug-in. So maintaining that 12-volt source is very important. And, understanding what you need to look for, what you need to do. So, your average 12-volt battery, the lifespan can vary greatly on a 12-volt battery. It really depends on the care and maintenance and how you maintain that battery. Letting them sit for long periods of time and discharge themselves will greatly reduce the lifespan of that battery and its capability to take and hold a charge for you. Proper charging of that battery, whether it be through plugging it in and using your unit's converter to charge that battery, or you're also charging through your Trado plug on your vehicle. On your 7-way plug provides a charge for that battery when you're driving down the road. But if the unit sits for periods of time and you're not using it, well, most people don't realize, even if they think they have everything turned off, there is still usually a small draw on those batteries. One of the main ones was, Chris was talking earlier about, his LP detector. Those are, no matter what, always powered in the unit because it's a safety thing. And generally, 7 days or so, and that's the upper end, you can begin to see a battery reach a lower discharge rate on it. And, you know, like I said a while ago, if that battery remains in that lower discharge state for a period of time, it begins to damage that battery to where it will greatly decrease its lifespan and affect its ability to accept a charge from that point on. So some things to consider, things to do. Most units have a battery cutoff switch. Looks like this. This is one style. There's styles that are like a big paddle key and different things like that that have a shutoff switch. And what you want to do is always make sure you're shutting that battery off when you're not using the unit. And that will help preserve that battery for you. If you do not have one of those can always be added to your unit. And if that's not something you want to do, a last case resort is just to remove the negative terminal in that battery when it's not in use. And that also will keep it from having any kind of drain or anything on it. Weather. We're in that time of year right now. This is the time of year that's the hardest on a 12-volt battery. And what can happen in this kind of weather, once you hit your freezing temperatures, is if that battery is at a low state of charge, which if you put these things away and haven't used them for a while because it's cold, and it reaches a low state of charge, and then you get into freezing temperatures, that's when batteries can actually begin to expand and rupture and bust. And we see that. So, you know, a good recommendation in a colder weather like this is, if possible, especially if you guys are done with your unit and you put it away for the winter, you tucked it away and you're done, if it's possible, remove that battery from your unit. That's the best thing you can do. Instead of letting it sit in a storage facility somewhere or something like that with the battery in it all winter, remove that battery, take it home, put it in your garage or somewhere where it can stay in a somewhat climate controlled environment, or if you have a trickle charger or something like that put on it. But it definitely is not good on batteries, and we see a lot in springtime that never come back to life because they did reach a low state of charge on them, and then that cold weather just kills them.
Any questions on battery? Yes.
Yes, I mean, I guess the inverter or whatever doesn't keep the battery charged if you've got it plugged up.
Yes, it will, but you need to maintain the water
Right.
with distilled water. Yeah, and we see a lot of people that are able to keep theirs in storage and do that. Just needs to make sure, please, to maintain the water level in that, because nothing's being drawn off of it, so it's putting like 13.1 or 13.2 charge into it. It will dissipate the water pretty quick. Just maintain your water level, distilled water.
But should you turn it, I guess my question is, should you turn it off every time you're not using it?
Well,
Say it's down for 3 months or whatever before you reuse it.
Yeah, I just, like, we used mine March of this year, and then we didn't get to use it till July, but when I put it up in March, I just shut mine off. I made sure it was charged, or took it out there, shut it off, put it in storage. And then the day before I went and got it, I plugged it in and turned it on and let it charge. And I didn't have any problem with it whatsoever. Usually if you put up a battery fully charged, it won't hardly lose much. It may go down to 11.6, 11.4. The only trouble is when one gets below 10 volts, that's when it just seems to fall. But and there's a situation like where I keep mine in storage. The two people that have the motorhomes out there, they keep theirs plugged in all the time, but they're constantly maintaining the water in the batteries to make sure that it's not dry, because all it does is then it boils the battery, ruins the plates, and you have to replace them.
Is there a time limit or anything on the like in the deep cell batteries? Battery, 5 years, 4 years, even though it may be good after that 5 years, should you replace it?
Usually what we see here for motorhomes and stuff, it looks like it's like every 4 or 5 years. And it's the same way if you've kept maintenance on your battery. See, mine was 2016, so it was 2021 when I replaced the original battery in it. You know, but it was like you're trying to do with your maintain, keep the water up, no corrosion, and so forth, and you can get some longevity out of a battery.
Yes, sir.
Whenever cars get 420 on, I never really looked at the battery to see that. Are they deep cycle or just regular car batteries?
No, deep cycle.
Deep cycle.
Yeah, they're deep cycle batteries.
I got 7 years on mine.
And that's honestly, that's not uncommon if you take care of it.
Well, our camper is down at a campground, so it's plugged.
Sure.
So it's plugged in year round, and check water, spring, and winter and all that. And I've got a little bit of I've got some rodent detectors,
Sure.
and a few little LED lights, so I got a little bit of a draw.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I got 7 years out of it.
That's good.
Yep.
Yes.
Is there a benefit to having 2 12-volt batteries hooked up to camping, no utility?
Is there a benefit to having two, you said?
Yeah.
Well, your only benefit to having two is you're going to extend the amp hours, per se, which is the life that you would have on those batteries, not life expectancy, but the amount of time you would have on those batteries as far as, running what you're wanting to run. So the only advantage of having two is you have a longer battery life.
Okay.
If you are, say, dry camping,
That's what the purpose of me putting that second one in there was, that, because if you're out there and your battery goes dead, you're just, so they got a generator and
Okay.
stuff, but I don't run that generator except, I don't run it when I'm sleeping.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, if you're not plugged into shore power, or if you have a unit that has inverters in it, and what an inverter does is it converts DC power to AC power so that you can run those things that are AC without being plugged into shore power. Those things need additional batteries a lot of times to give you that battery life that you need to get through if you aren't plugged in or have the ability to charge or don't want to run your generator at night or things like that. So that's the advantage of having multiple batteries.
Well, there was extra room under the one that came with it, and I had a guy build me a box to put another one right underneath it, and just hook the 2 cables to it, and it's there, so.
Maintenance is still the same. What we talked about, you still want to maintain whether it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4 battery system. The maintenance is still the same as far as what you want to be looking for with the battery.
Okay, moving on to holding tank maintenance. So the question I'll ask, because a lot of people when they go camping, they hook to city water. So they don't really use their freshwater tank. So I don't know how many of you here use your freshwater tank. I know that what we've learned is anytime we go camping, I just use freshwater tank. I found that for us, it's easier to maintain how much water we use. Being a smaller camper, we've only got 35 black, 35 gray, and I got 46 fresh water. So we kind of maintain nothing gets too overused and so forth. So for y'all that do not use a fresh water tank, the few that do, every spring and fall I use the Spring Fresh, flush it out, flush my water system, and then drain it. That kind of sanitizes the system and so forth. Plus too, it helps sanitize your water lines and so forth that are in there as well. But that's for the fresh water tank. Now for the black and gray, the gray tank, it will get soap scum, kitchen sink buildup in it and so forth. So what we found is some of these back here, you'll get an odor and they need to be rinsed out real good. The product that I've found and used, and it's the same thing that's used in the black tank, is the new gen. We've got to where every time we go to the dump station, I try to make sure that both of my tanks are full before I go. So I will put the recommended amount in the gray through the bathtub, as well add some extra in UGN before we go dump at the black station and dump it all out at once. Then I'm fortunate enough that when we come back here before I put it up, then I rinse my black tank every time when I get done. I found that's the best policy in the world to get rid of all the debris, everything that's built up in there out, make sure it runs clear. And it's the same way with the gray tank. There's sometimes that I'll have to put the hose in the tub, go ahead and fill it up, and flush it again to get it to read 0. But I found that I've had least problems when I do that every time we use it. Just go ahead and rinse everything, and I don't have any problems with sensors, and I don't have any odor when we go get it next time we use it. So, any questions?
That's what that one deal is, where you flush, turn the black.
Yeah, now some of you will have to flush. I don't. I have to manually do it with, there's a couple of things they sell back in the back, which you just go down through your toilet and it'll spray it out. But yeah, there's a lot of your fifth wheels and travel trailers now that have a flusher, which is awesome. You can add it. It can be added. We have added several back in the service department, but just to maintain and keep it flush, we've just found it just makes life easier. Your sensors read properly and so forth. You don't get false readings. So. Yes?
When you use that in your for your fresh butter to freshen up your lines and stuff, do you just put it in your fresh butter tank, or do you run it through like your pipe?
So this is what they call Spring Fresh. It has a formula on the back that you use to put in the fresh tank, and I put it in my fresh tank, and I'll go ahead and run it through all my water lines, even the water heater. Then I'll go ahead and usually I'll run 46 gallons through mine, just keep flushing it, and then that way you get all that flushed out as well. It just seems to, I've only had one incident where I had what they call the rotten egg smell. Left water in my water tank. It was a nightmare to get flushed out, but that did it. But I feel this is safer than bleach. Bleach works, but I just feel that's safer than bleach.
Okay, so the next topic we're going to talk about here is, this one's pretty simple. Inspect your frame and your jacks. So, what you want to do, if you can, get up under your unit, starting at the tongue or the pin box on the fifth wheel, start at the front and just work your way back and inspect that frame. You want to look for damage, any road damage has happened, run over anything, stuff like that. Check the welds and the points where the frames meet, and look for any stress cracks or anything like that down the unit that may need addressed. And then also just take a look for any, chips and stuff. It happens to the front tongue of mine a lot. It'll get some chipped up, and then you start getting some rust, and the black paint will start flaking off. Just touch them up. That'll stop the rust and make the trailer look a lot better. Just have some black paint that matches your frame, and just touch up as you inspect it, go through and touch up any of the rust spots, and that'll prevent any future rust from happening. But also get your eyes under there to see, Chris was talking earlier about, checking the springs and the spring hangers and things. Those are areas where sometimes you can get stress cracks in, and or some damage has happened. So just inspect that frame, go down through there, look for anything that jumps out at you that doesn't look right. Touch up any rusty spots or something. And not only does that prolong the life of it, but it makes it look better. So the second part is jacks. Some trailers have the manual scissor jacks like we see right over here. Some have electric stabilizer systems on them, and then some have hydraulic stabilizers on them. So, just inspect those, starting with the scissor jacks like you see over here. We all know what those are and how they work. That rod is a threaded rod that runs through the middle of them. Inspect that, clean it off, get any grime and stuff off of it, put some lubricant on it, touch up any rusty spots or anything on them, and that's all you need to do to keep them working great for you. As far as the electric jack systems, just inspect the pivot points and things on them and make sure nothing's bent or gotten hit on the road or anything. You can lubricate those pivot points that are on those to keep them running smooth. Very simple. The hydraulic jacks, you just want to take a look and make sure road debris and stuff can build up on those. And they have seals that are on the shaft for the hydraulic. And as that road debris can build up on those, they can start to affect those seals. So keep them clean if you can. Clean off the road debris on them and things like that. And then inspect those for any kind of seepage or leaking. Which means you do have a seal problem. And a lot of times it'll be in the foot plate of it, and you'll see a little bit of, most of them have like a transmission type fluid in them or a hydraulic fluid in them. Look for that, and that'll let you know maybe you're starting to have a problem with those. But that's just a general inspection, really, is all the maintenance you need to do on those and inspect and keep them clean. Yes, sir.
What's the best lubricant to put on those?
That can just be any type of lubricant. Just to keep
40
them.
or
Preferably nothing really thick that's going to hold a lot of grime. Yeah, kind of like your dry lube or a silicone lubricant or something like that. I wouldn't do any kind of like the lithium type stuff or anything that's thick that's going to grab that dirt and then just make the situation worse for you.
So the next thing will be appliance maintenance and care. There's really, on the appliance maintenance and care, the two things that stand out for us to double check is your furnace. Even in the summertime, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and turn your furnace on, let it operate, let it run, make sure it runs properly, just through one cycle. Make sure that nothing's got inside there. No wasp nests, no dirt dauber's nests. We found this year the biggest problem was the stink bugs. They were just, it was amazing how many can get in there. But just if you periodically turn it on and make sure it operates okay, then you don't have any problems coming close to fall when you need it. The water heater maintenance, what I found is calcium buildup. Even though when I try to fill our freshwater tank, I use a filter before we fill it, you still get a calcium buildup in the water heater. It doesn't matter if it's a steel tank or the aluminum tank. You can, when you remove the plug or the anode rod to drain it, I bought one of these devices and it just hooks to a water hose, and you can go up inside where the plug is and keep rinsing the calcium out, and that keeps the buildup out of there, and also it'll save a little bit for the Suburban on the anode rod. Keeps from getting the impurities that's in the water tank that anode rod does keep from rusting the tank and so forth. But the aluminum tank, it just gets all the calcium out. That way it's not getting in your water lines, in your faucets. I know there's been several times this year that we've had to take the screen off of the kitchen faucet to clean the debris out of it. It's just a general few minutes maintenance, and there's been a couple of times where I'll drain it before we leave the campsite, and I've got a hose available there. I just do it real quick before we leave. But those are the main two, as far as maintenance goes, because there's really not much to do with the stove, really not much to do with the refrigerator, except for what we've noticed with the new 12-volt refrigerators and with the residential refrigerators. When you turn them off, what we're finding is the moisture will build up and it'll overflow out the front of the refrigerator. You're not really realizing how much moisture is in there, so then it'll do cabinet damage. So just like we've just got the small refrigerator, so every time we get ready to put it up, we'll turn it off, open it up. We have some towels that she has cut to fit the bottom, and then 2 days later after we put it up, we'll go get those out, and they're usually wet. Then she'll wipe the inside out. We keep the door open just for airflow, keep from any mold or anything building up in the refrigerator. But on some of the 12 volts and some of the residentials, we've seen where they get a lot of moisture built up in there, and then it's ran out over the cabinet edge, and then you notice a couple of months later your cabinets are all rolled up at the bottom, but that's where the moistures came from. So we find that we just leave our refrigerator open until we get ready to use it again. So, and that's the only ones that I know that you can really do something about and keep a maintenance on. Any questions?
Okay, so our next topic we'll touch on pretty quickly here is awning inspection and care. We touched on this when we did our roof and seam and seal seminar. There's not a lot of maintenance to do on an awning, which is good, but there are some things you want to be mindful to pay attention to. One of the biggest mistakes people make with their awning is they roll it up wet. And hey, sometimes it's unavoidable, right? You can't, if it's raining when you tear down camp, there's nothing you can do about it. You know, you have to roll that thing up wet. But what you need to do is once it stops raining, you get home, wherever, you want to roll that thing back out and let it dry. Because when you trap moisture in there, it's going to mildew. Then you're going to, most of the underneath of a lot of the awnings is white. Some are black top and bottom. A lot of them are white on the underneath. You're going to get these horrible mildew stains in there that are difficult to get off. There's products that you can use and black stick removers and awning cleaners and stuff like that you can use, and you got to scrub and get that stuff off. But if at all possible, try to avoid rolling them up wet. And even think about, a lot of people tear down camp in the morning when they leave. You may not have been raining, but especially in the spring and fall and stuff, you may have a lot of mildew on it. And then when you roll it up, it's rolling itself up on top of each other, so it's going to be wet in there. So, if you know your awning's dry and you roll it up, you're good. But if any question, when you get home or once the sun comes back out or whatever, unroll that thing and let it dry. And that will definitely prolong the life of and keep your awning looking a lot better for you. That's a very important thing to do there. Another one is, most of the time, your awnings are stored somewhere. If you got indoor storage, that's great. You don't really have to worry about this. But if not, when your awning is rolled up and in, you have a portion of that fabric there that is exposed. Essentially what's on the very outside of the tube there that's exposed. It's a good idea to use some sort of UV protectant or something on that. We've got one right here. It's just a simple UV spray on protectant to put on that because we see a lot where, over a couple of years, that first little bit of the awning that's always exposed begins to fade and, looks white, but then also it will dry out and begin to crack. And that's usually where you'll see leaks or cracks in an awning, is usually that first about foot or so that's up against camper, because that's the last part that's always exposed when it's rolled in. So just maintain that, keep an eye on that if you can, put some UV protectant or something on it if it does sit outside a lot. But one of the biggest things with awning maintenance and care is try to avoid rolling them up wet, because it's harmful to your fabric and it'll create horrible stains underneath.
Just a real quick question, and
Yes.
this is probably a dumb one.
No dumb questions.
With these kinds of awning poles, is there any way to make it so that this awning comes straight down so you can dry it off?
No.
There's no way to dry it off. Okay.
Unfortunately, there's not.
That's why I said it'd be great if there was. You just have to try to get it rolled back out. Rolling it up wet isn't going to hurt, so don't worry about that. But you do want to get that unrolled, let it dry out as quickly as you can, whenever you can.
Now this one I see it has some adjustment there, like mine, but not a lot, that you can tilt it down more. But it's like you said, sometimes it's not enough to let the moisture wick off. We just, when we get somewhere, we're not leave it outside where I store it. We'll leave it outside for about an hour with it open, and it seems to get dry, and then we put it away.
Yes, sir.
Should you, does it hurt it to stay closed all the time, or should you once a year, twice a year extend it, or is there?
No, it's not going to hurt for it to stay closed, but just like most all the things we're talking about right now, even like with your appliances we were just talking about and stuff, it's always good to run these things every so often. You know, to not only check the operation of them, so you don't go out on a big camping adventure and you get there and your awning doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, check these things. It's always a good idea before you go, or if you haven't used them in a while, just roll them out. You know, your awning, roll it out, inspect it, look at it, roll it back in. You're good. But no, it does not hurt it to stay in at all, but it's always good to try to operate as many things on their units as you can periodically. Not only check their operation, but, you know, keep them operating smooth for you. All right, so the last thing we'll cover here is just kind of some basic exterior care and maintenance, protection. So, to be honest, washing these things is not fun. It's not. They're tall, they're big. It's a lot of labor, a lot of elbow grease, things like that. But doing it will definitely not only help maintain the look of the unit and keep it looking good, keep it from aging. You know, I've seen units that are a year or two old that I would swear were 10 years old, just due to the fact of just poor care and maintenance and things like that. But, you know, wash them as often as you can. You know, spray them off, wash them. We talked about the roof one earlier. Keeping that roof clean actually will help the exterior sides of your camper look much cleaner, because all that dust sits and accumulates on the roof of that. And then once it does finally rain or anything, it's just dirt running down the sides of your unit. So, and what I learned, what I found is kind of surprised me was I stored mine under covered storage, thinking that'll help really keep the unit cleaner. What happened was my roof got much dirtier that way because it never got rained on. And it just accumulated and accumulated dirt and dirt and dirt because it wasn't completely stored. It wasn't in a garage, it was just covered storage. And I remember I went camping, and my roof was brown. I have a white roof and it was brown. I mean, it was dirtier than almost every other camper in the campground. I'm like, I covered storage. Well, it's because it never got rained on and rinsed off. So, you know, keeping that roof clean, inspecting that. If you are in cover storage, keep that in mind, that roof is probably going to be dirtier than normal. And then when it does rain, it's all coming down the side of the unit. So, cleaning the roof with a product like we got here, or just getting up there and spraying it off, or, you know, getting a good rain on it, or whatever it may be. But then, you know, waxing these things is something that is very challenging to do. If you can do it, have the ability, great. That will definitely provide a lot of protection and keep the unit clean and keep those black streaks from sticking to it and everything like that. But if not, try to find a product that has some sort of wax built into the wash that will help. You know, and very important is try to find something that even has, like the number one thing on this says polymer protection to shine, UV blocker, and SPF 40. So you guys have probably all seen the faded campers. You know, they fade, or you might even have one that doesn't look quite the way it did when it was brand new. Trying to put something or keep something on the exterior of a camper that has some sort of UV or SPF protection will help decals and help especially the fiberglass units and keep them from fading. But they also help keep it cleaner because they, just like the wax on the car, the water runs right off. You know, things can't stick to it. So, you know, that was the last thing we really had, was just trying to keep the outside as clean as you can. And while you're doing that, that's when you'll notice and see a lot of things too. If you are out there washing and cleaning and things like that, that's when you'll see some things too that maybe need addressed that we talked about prior on the list and stuff. So,
Yes, sir.
So, is that a service that you offer here?
it is not.
How come?
We do offer the roof service, the roof cleaning. We do offer where we'll do this 2-step program and wash the roof for you and apply the UV protectant and stuff like that on it. But unfortunately, we do not offer a wash service. If you have a bigger unit or something like that, and you can't really get anywhere, there's places that do it. You know, a lot of truck stops have like the blue beacons and things like that that will do washes for you and wash it. But unfortunately, I'm sorry, we don't offer a wash service here.
Yes.
Yes.
Sitting at the top of the camper has that rubber membrane. Does that mean you should or shouldn't be using any kind of wax product on it?
You don't need to wax that. What you want to do is clean it with a cleaner. use an
Well,
RV type
like I said,
cleaner,
they're
or I've also
wax on the
heard.
outside, but you don't really want to put it on the top.
No, it's rubber, so you don't want to wax it. What you want to do is use a cleaner that's safe for that roof. The only one I've ever heard that isn't specified for RV that manufacturers say is spick and span that you can use, or the cleaners that we have. We have a single
This is
just cleaner, or we have a
And
cleaner
this is a
system.
cleaner and a protector.
Yep. So you don't want to wax. You want to use that protectant, which provides a UV coating, but it's not a wax. It's a rubber roof. So, yes, sir.
You just mentioned the blue beacon, if you wanted to have it washed, that's pressure washer. Do you recommend using pressure washer on these, or just all hose and brush?
I recommend hose and brush. They do use a pressure washer. If you, got a friend of mine that has the motorhome, and we take it up there probably a couple of times a year. And if you ask them to stay away from the, well, they'll use the high pressure, but stay away from all your like refrigerator openings, side vents, and not be on it as much, because they use a chemical, they spray it with a chemical and then come along and rinse it. They will do that. It's a little extra, I found out, but they will do it. So.
Even at home, it'd be better just using a hose and brush, probably.
So yes, what I have is I live in an apartment, so I'll pull it up out there, and I've got Lippert sells it. DeWalt sells one that has a pressure washer that pulls out of a 5-gallon battery operated. Seems to work really well. I have a chemical attachment I can put on there to put my wash chemical in, and then I have I use a rinse agent like you would use for a dishwasher, and put in there and follow up and rinse it down with it. But I'll spray that on there, agitate it with the brush, and then use the rinse agent to rinse it off. I usually go through 20 to, mine's not that big, 15 to 20 gallons of water doing it with that. But yeah, at home is really the best way to do it.
Any other questions we have, guys, on any of the topics we covered?
I want to thank everybody for coming. We enjoy putting these on. Pete and I has worked on this for several days, putting something together. We know it ran a little long, but we want everybody to enjoy camping. That's what it's all about, to go and enjoy, not have any issues. It's family fun. We enjoy it. We enjoy having these, and we enjoy everybody participating and coming and wanting to learn how to take care of their unit. We really appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.